Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monsters Den. It's Thursday night. It's Halloween season. Welcome to October, everyone. As we stated, we're going to rank two franchises this month, celebrating Halloween, the first of which is going to be the Chucky series. But before we do that, well, first let me introduce the crew. We got Dan Brown in the house. Jamie Laszlo's here. Craig Kaminski's here, the King Chris Allo's here, and all the way from Scotland, it's like 5 a.m. or whatever by him, Mr. Davey Gallagher. What's going on, Davey? Actually, Davey can't go to bed because he's got to keep ranking his Barclay James Harvest albums for our ranking.
Well, I am a total ranker, as I'm constantly told.
That's right. I do want to show everybody something before we start talking about Chucky. Mr. Brown made this, and I promised him I would show it here on the air. So everybody remember we did that really bad shark movie.
Oh, that's funny.
Look at this Twilight Shark.
Wow.
Well, hopefully everybody can see this.
Oh my
gotta read the special credits.
All right, I will read them right now. So the special credits, it's a Sea of Tranquility's production presents Monsters Den Wet Dream Films Twilight Shark, starring Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson, Taylor Lautner, and a really bad CGI shark. Music by Howard Shore, costume designer Tish Monahan, production designer Paul Denham, Austerberry, director of photography Javier Ago, who whatever. Topless beach scenes choreographed by Craig Kaminski in association with the Pittsburgh Bikini Institute of Higher Knowledge. Produced by Melissa Rosenberg, directed by David Slate, based on the novel Once Upon a Time on the Jersey Shore.
Nice.
It will be done for real, I bet. Someday.
And the cell line at the back is what? This time he's back, but it's not. What's that?
Just when you thought it was safe to take it personal again.
That's funny.
Is it a sparkly shark?
He's in whipped cream or foam. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's like froth. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an emo shark.
Yes, I just couldn't help it.
Nice job, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, with that, on to the topic at hand, Chucky. All right, so I've got the 7-film, the original series, Blu-ray set here. I think they're coming out, or it's just came out with the 4K set, and then you have the Child's Play remake as a separate standalone disc. But anyway, regardless, here we go. 8 films in total. We have all rewatched them, or for some of us, some of these we might be seeing for the first time. And we're going to rank them in the order that we like them. I will go on record saying right now that half of these movies I had seen before, the other half I had not. This is a pretty good franchise. I was pleasantly surprised at how much these all hold together. And I think, and we'll get into this, I think the reason why this franchise is so far superior to some other ones is because there is continuity across these films for the most part.
Don't mention it. Yep.
Yeah, and that says a lot, and that really, I think, is why these movies are so good. So with that being said, we're going to go in clumps of 3 since we have 8 films in total. So we'll do one trip around, 3 movies, then 3, and then 2. I will have Davey kickstart us off with his 8, 7, and 6.
Well, thank you and good evening. Can I say a quick hello to Neil, one of our viewers who his son Christopher did ask for a special hello there because he watches every episode of everything on Sea Tranquility. So my goodness.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this franchise is a weird one for me because I feel like it doesn't get the love, even though there is this consistency. And I think it is Mancini's involvement because he can shepherd it all into one place. But that doesn't stop it from being just one idea and then he doesn't change it very much, like say the Scream franchise, something like that. It ends up being everything, and then that goes into the TV show where it's everything plus even more. So yes, it's a really varied and interesting franchise, and I genuinely don't think there's a really bad one here. And I know we might get a couple of people thinking that one of them in particular is not great. That one is not going to be bottom of my list. Bottom for me, I would have put the 2019 remake for the simple reason that we're talking about how tight the continuity is. Obviously, that's the one that breaks the continuity. So it just doesn't feel like it's in the same conversation for me. We could take it out, this conversation, and not really have it matter. fun stuff in it. I like Mark Hamill. I also like that he didn't just do his Joker voice. He didn't just bring that Mark Hamill. He plays a very different Mark Hamill vocally, where it gives Chucky a naivety that he's not normally got. So I liked the AI Chucky. I thought that was or the I suppose it would be wouldn't it? Or, yeah, I suppose it's artificial intelligence. I like the setup for that with how it starts just with one pissed off worker in Hong Kong or wherever it is. I like that being the cause of everything. Aubrey Plaza is great. I love seeing her in anything. And I really like some of the stupid things in it, like Chucky picking up "This is for Tupac" and then murdering people and saying that is his kind of closing line. I love that kind of stuff. But overall, it's just, does it need to exist? No, it doesn't. So I'm almost putting that bottom by default. The second bottom for me, I'm going to put Child's Play 3, which that's a very infamous film in the UK. It was involved in a very heinous child murder in real life. So it took on a kind of mythos where, can you even get it? It was getting withdrawn from shops and blah, blah, blah. And actually, it's relatively quite a tame film once you take that away from it. I don't think it's got a lot of the magic of the first two. I like some of the elements of it. I like references like the blood falling into the plastic vat, like waking him up, like Dracula in one of the Hammer films where the blood drips into his mouth, and that Prince of Darkness, I guess that would be. The opening with Chucky's head being like the jack-o'-lantern from the Halloween credits, I like that. But I genuinely hate Justin Whalen's version of Andy. I think that's horrible. The film was made in a real rush to capitalize because the last one was out, I think, not even a year. I think it was 9 months between between these films. So it does feel rushed. It feels very much like we better capitalize quick in case this franchise doesn't have legs. I do love genuinely Andrew Robinson's character, the hairdresser from Hell. He's the kind of strange little character that Don Mancini comes up with. So I like that. I like Chucky in general in it, but I don't know. It gives me vibes of, was it The Omen 2, the one where Damien goes to the military academy, or was that The Omen 3?
No,
Two.
It gives me vibes of that. It doesn't feel, again, terribly Child's Play like. And then third bottom for me, but again, I don't dislike any of these ones, Bride of Chucky. So the reason I put that this low and not the follow-up is it's that post-Scream, we love irony, we love meta, everything's kind of Kevin Williamson inspired. I don't really like that aesthetic. So it starts to make really knowing references to itself, but not particularly in a clever way that I think it would do later on and continues to do to this day. Literally to this day, it was on earlier on. But you get things like characters saying, Chucky, he's so 80s. And Chucky himself saying, if my life story was movies, then there need to be 3 sequels. It would get cleverer later on, that kind of meta aspect. It does introduce the wonderful Tiffany, played by Jennifer Tilly, who's just an amazing addition, continues to be in the TV show as well, an amazing addition to the franchise. It's the annoying teens. I don't really need all that kind of subplot. That feels very, we better have some young CW looking people in there. Very Scream, very I Know What You Did Last Summer. I can do without all that kind of subplot. But Chuck himself, fun. I really like Tiffany, as I said, and I love the birth of the fuck Martha Stewart references. That's for some reason an ongoing thing. Martha Stewart comes in for a hell of a pile-on throughout this franchise, and it starts here. So yeah, that would be my bottom 3: 2019, 3, and then Bride of Chucky.
Cool. Okay, Chris.
Okay. Yeah, I would definitely agree with both you and Davey. This franchise is a lot better than I thought it was. And there was a couple here that were first-time views. I know, Pete, a couple of years ago, me and the famous Rich Catino did a franchise ranking where we ranked like our favorite franchises. And I had to disqualify this because there was a bunch of movies I hadn't seen. But I think if we redid it, yeah, I would. Child's Play would be high up on my list because, yeah, really overall, I think it's quite a strong franchise. But my worst movie of the list, Child's Play 3, which I had never seen from start to finish. I just think it was. I agree with Davey. I hated the kid playing Andy. He was fucking annoying. I think the premise of Andy going to a military school is stupid. I think one of the dumbest fucking things I have ever seen in the history of cinema is they're at this military school and the school is split into the blue team and the red team, and they're on a battlefield, having a mock battle, and Chucky runs away and Andy runs after him. Of course, obviously they're outside, but a fucking second later, they run into a carnival. I'm like, seriously? You guys are shooting fucking, paintballs at each other and you're, 50 yards away from a fucking carnival. I'm like, this is just stupid. There's a little black kid who's the most fucking annoying thing I've ever seen. But yet Chucky, kind of pals around with him. I'm like, Chucky would have fucking killed this kid in a second because he's so annoying. I didn't like it at all. That one by far the one I liked the least. The next one, Curse of Chucky, which was the first direct-to-video sequel. It's not a bad movie, but man, it is just so cheap. It's a requel, so it's a sequel, but also kind of a soft reboot of the original because it's basically kind of the same movie, although instead of Andy being a kid, it's Brad Dourif's daughter in a wheelchair, who I think does a great job. It's just everything just looks so cheap, and the whole movie takes place in a house. And I just thought it was also too a huge missed opportunity because, spoiler alert, they do this whole thing where they say Charles Lee Ray killed the character Nika's father and stabbed the mother while she was pregnant, and I'm like, dude, she looks so much like her father, Brad Dourif. Like, how did you just not say that Charles Lee Ray was her father? I mean, they have the same face, which kind of creeps me out because I think she's kind of cute at times. So that's kind of weird. But I don't know why they didn't do that because they look so much alike. But not terrible, but it's just so cheap it kind of prevented me from loving it. And then the next one would be Cult of Chucky, which could be even cheaper. And it all takes place in a hospital. But what I really like was they brought back Alex Vincent from the guy that played the first Andy in the first two movies. They brought back Christine Elise, who played the, not the sister, but what would she be called?
Foster sister.
Foster sister.
Oh, foster sister. Yes, I was gonna say not a stepsister. Yeah, foster sister from Child's Play 2, and Jennifer Tilly had a big role. So I liked that quite a bit in Cult of Chucky. So yeah, those were my three bottom ones.
Cool. I think we're all going to have different rankings here, which is interesting. Yep. So cool. Dan, what do you got?
Okay, to put it in perspective, I saw the first Child's Play in '88. I saw number 2, may have been either on home video or in the theater. Honestly, it didn't blow me out of the water. I didn't, it was okay. Wasn't that crazy about it. I enjoyed it. But if somebody had told me back then that in 35 years, this series would have spawned a number of sequels and had been tied in Chucky with was it WWE or WWF at one point, toys, merchandising, good guy dolls. And to date, now it's a successful TV series. I would have said, no fucking way. No way. I mean, then again, you're talking to the guy who he heard the first Kiss album on an 8-track. And I said, told my friend, this sounds pretty good. Who are they? He pulled the 8-track out and he showed me the 8-track and says, they're great, but this makeup is just not going to fly. So coming from me, that's my, that's why I don't play Powerball. But nonetheless, when I watched these films, I'd never seen anything after number 2. So when I watched these about a week ago, it's like kind of as fresh as my mind could be. And honestly, I enjoyed the whole run, the whole thing, but I just think it's fun. But I'm going to say my bottom one is going to be number 3, as very much like Chris. I'm pretty much on the same page with Chris on this. Number 3, because yes, it does feel rushed. It was made 9 months later, and I think I have a theory about that. And I think what it was, I think Mancini, since he still has his hands in the ointment here, he went to Universal, or somebody pitched the script to Universal. And I think he has this basic sardonic black humor wit about him in general. And I think he approached Universal with a script that had some of these like Seed of Chucky things, or just weird pop culture references. And somebody at the studio went there and said, hey, no, we can't, humor and horror don't mix. You give us a straight horror film, you got a deal. So they gave probably a 3-picture deal. He did number 1, successful. Number 2, not as successful, I believe. And then number 3, he rushed it because probably just like a recording artist. I just want to get out of my contract. Because once he went into The Bride, he switched gears and made a left turn. And ever since then, the show has always been this tongue-in-cheek, and that's what I love about it. And paying homage. So, but that being said, my next least favorite is along the line with Chris, with Curse of Chucky, because once again, kind of stupid. It's cheesy, direct to video. I guess it was some kind of a deal he made to keep the franchise going. Bangs it out, going back to their horror roots, and you see, it did well, I guess, in DVD units, but whatever. The house thing, and even as Chris said, looks just like Brad Dourif, and the guy was screwing around with the mother. So just admit it. Brad Dourif's your dad. Or whatever, Charles Lee Ray. Then my next one after that is going to be, what's that? The Cult of Chucky.
Cult of Chucky, yeah.
Cult of Chucky, same thing. Now, the one thing I do love about the Cult of Chucky is that they make, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, they make their first pop culture reference, an Easter egg. I think I put a thing up to Chris, said that to Craig. There's an Easter egg in this thing. And when he's in the sanitarium walking around, he goes by this inmate or patient there who he had contacted on the phone. And as he walks away from her, if she's babbling on, he goes, this place is full of cuckoos.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Brad Dourif's first role. They could have certainly said a bunch of fucking whack jobs or anything else, but he said, who says cuckoos? So I think it was a homage to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Brad Dourif's role. So I thought that was a really like subtle, wow, that's great. But that's my order right now. For there was number 3. Then it went to Curse, and then it went to, and don't get me wrong, I do like all of them in their own weird way. And the last one is the Cult of Chucky, where he can kind of divide himself up like a cell.
Cool. All right. Jamie.
All right. I too saw a lot of these for the first time. I saw one not less than a decade ago, and 2. So it took me a long time because I always felt the premise was stupid. I was like, this little doll, someone just pick him up and throw him out a fucking window. Done. Movie over. Why don't kick him away? But then I remember this ain't too bad when I first saw the first one. So going in, and I stretched this out too, all 8 movies. And I feel like I watched 28 movies because I procrastinated and it took me a month to do it. And it lost me in the middle. So that's where I'm going to start, in the middle somewhere, with number 8, Seed of Chucky. I think the whole Jennifer Tiffany thing gets a little confusing. They look alike, but they're not the same person. She's having a conversation with the doll. They both have the same voice. They're trying to do a movie within a movie type thing, and it's just not clicking with me. It looks like it's done badly. Chucky's kid is goofy looking. Looks like he should be playing bass for My Chemical Romance, which makes sense because it's 2004. So that whole thing. John Waters, wasted in this movie. You get a character like John Waters and you do absolutely nothing with him. Britney Spears cameo, wasted. Again, another wasted opportunity. A lot of the comedy is not only not funny, but it made me cringe. It was like, oh, this is not good. Yeah, and they went way too far with the comedy. It was just one thing after another, and it was all bad. So number 8, I couldn't wait for that one to be over. Number 7, I'm going with Bride of Chucky. Again, didn't see the movie until recently. But for some reason, I always had the fucking soundtrack, and I don't know why. I don't know where I got it. because every decent song on here I already own. So it must have been real cheap, or a CD club sent me the card in the mail and I didn't send it back in time, and they sent me that, returned it. That's probably what happened, and that's why I have it.
Thanks, Columbia House.
Yes, Columbia House or BMG or whatever.
I
I did notice, right in the beginning, I think it's the evidence room. They're playing tribute to Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You see all the bits and from Halloween and everything. Then they even reference Hellraiser later. Right away, the opening credits with Jennifer Tilly looking all sexy, and you got Living Dead Girl by Rob Zombie playing. It just screams 90s right away. And then I noticed the comedy really coming in when Jennifer Tilly is reading a book, Voodoo for Dummies. Man, they're really going a little far with it. The strange thing about it, the campiness of this movie, the whole rhythm of it, the colors, the whole tone reminds me of the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, the camera angles, and it worked for a little bit on me, but it got tiresome. And I was waiting for it to be over. I'm hitting the display button, which tells me how many fucking minutes are left through the movie, and 15 minutes. All right, I can do it. Because it was wearing on me there. And I had no idea that John Ritter was in it. So it was nice to see John Ritter in that movie, though. And then number 6, I'm going with Child's Play 3. Now, let me read from the wiki page for Child's Play 3, because this puts it perfectly. Although released only 9 months after Child's Play 2, the story takes place 8 years following the events of that film and 1 month before the events of Bride of Chucky, which was made 7 years later. That's pretty deep. And I noticed that, in part 2, Chucky he accepts that he's in the body, but then in 3, he wants out again. So I don't know. I guess he changed his mind. And I do like the fact that it's at a military school, because I thought Damien Omen 2 right away, which I love. And I kind of like that whole vibe about it. But here on Child's Play 3, they're doing the Freddy Krueger effect, which means Chucky's getting less scary and he's become a wisecracking character instead. Chucky's gonna be a bro. Okay, all right. I don't know. Chucky in part 1 would have said anything like that. During the war games, and I agree that the carnival was ridiculous, just being there. It was almost like a magical carnival that would and then go away because of where it was at.
Dr. Lau.
Yeah, I do like the fact that they got paint in the guns, but Chucky puts real bullets in there. I don't think they worked with that as well as they could have, but I sure as hell like the idea. But then I'm looking at watching the movie going, what is Chucky's motive to killing people right now? He wants to get out of his body, but he's just wasting time killing random people. So okay, he's a serial killer. I guess that's the motive, but I don't know. Yeah, it's not bad. Like, I have a problem with my last 2 bottom ones. All the rest are decent to good.
Greg.
Yeah, we're going all over the place with these, and that's okay. So my number 8, I went with Child's Play 2. This was the only one that I saw theatrically at the time, and Jenny Agutter from Logan's Run. The dad was in Phantom of the Paradise, if I remember correctly. There's a long stretch between Kill 1 and Kill 2. You got Christina Leese, who I always know from 90210, so I used to watch that a lot. So being the foster sister, so that's immediately where I recognize her from. But all in all, I didn't think it was a very good movie. I mean, the teacher is killed by a yardstick, I believe. I mean, that's pretty awful. Jenny Agutter is killed off screen. But in the one part I did think was kind of funny, just from watching it and just keeping in mind that it being made in 1990, in in this week's edition of Things You Can't Do in Movies Anymore, where Christina Lease gives little Andy a cigarette, and he takes a puff of it, or something, and then and it's like, well, that wouldn't happen today, and or him being shown as a little kid, shown the sign that says "fuck you, bitch," from his teacher, which you can clearly see that he can see what it says. It's like welcome to 30 some years ago, where things like that were not thought of to be as bad. But overall, I didn't find this one to be all as entertaining as some of the other ones would. So that's my 8. My number 7, I went with the reboot. Andy's too old, the mom's too young. There's no voodoo in it, after clearly been established through all the other 7 movies. So that kind of threw me off. I didn't care for the way Chucky looked, that he was Buddy with an eye, wasn't a good guy doll. I mean, I just didn't care for some of the things where I don't even understand. I don't remember why he was even called Chucky at all in this movie. I don't even know if it's just a random name or anything like that. There were some good kills. It was a little bit more bloody in some parts, but overall, I didn't find the movie all that entertaining. And I mean, it was okay, but not after enjoying the other movies. I watched these in order, and by the time I got to the reboot, it was like, I liked what they were doing with the other movies. So that one was my 7. My 6, I also went with Child's Play 3. Same reasons that everybody else said. I put this one up a little bit higher because I think Perry Reeves is hot. I always liked her from Entourage and from playing Will Ferrell's wife in Old School, and that's why I bumped this one up a little bit. I did laugh at the Chucky's going to be a bro line in that. I thought that was funny, although the black kid was way too young. Especially they're kind of like marching off to war, and there's like all these teenagers, that are holding guns, and then you got this little kid who's like the gun's bigger than him.
18 inches tall.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of weird. I didn't like the thing with switching bullets, or it's like, okay, fine, if you switch the bullets, you shoot once and you'd go, oh shit, and stop. There wouldn't be this firefight like something out of Saving Private Ryan going on. So I just that was just kind of ridiculous. And one guy dies of a heart attack, in this. He doesn't even get killed by Chucky. He basically is just scared to death from him. And this one I thought was about, and I mean, and it's as far as you're going to go with get revenge on Andy storyline. You couldn't, I mean, luckily for the next movie, they eschewed that, because it's like when you did that for 3 movies where it's like Chucky's gotta get with Andy or anything. By the time you got to the 3rd movie, it's like enough. So luckily that was the end of that. But Child's Play 3 was my number 6.
All right. Yeah, we're all over the map here. All right. My number 8 is Seed of Chucky. I don't know about you guys, but little baby Glenn really disturbed me. That is one disturbing, creepy looking doll. What is that, like an androgynous steampunk Ziggy Stardust doll? I mean, it's really what it looked like. I was like, holy cow. I found the humor in this film just way over the top. And a lot of it I didn't really find all that funny. Some good kill scenes. And also, it's just, they reintroduced Jennifer Tilly's character, and now she's playing herself, but Tiffany's still around, and it's just this weird kind of like whispering reality into it. I don't know, it doesn't really work for me. And to me, you finally start to see a lot of the cheapness of the franchise starting to creep in here. This one doesn't look as good. The gore effects don't look as good. So overall, and even like Chucky himself, I think he's not quite as sadistic as I think we've seen in other films. But I mean, entertaining, yes, but to me this was an easy pick for my least favorite. Number 7, I'm going to go with the remake from 2019. Did anybody else not get that this is like the Megan movie, basically?
Oh, it is.
Yeah, we said that when we reviewed Megan. Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole movie. I'm like, did we even need Megan? I mean, Megan came out what, last year, this year, whenever it came in. This, I mean, they already have it. It's Child's Play. That being said, you know, they changed a lot of the basis for the whole Chucky franchise. Like, you know, it's so here it's this kind of AI sort of thing. Like Jamie mentioned, there's no voodoo involved here. There's really no humor in this film at all. It's not really a fun film, but I found it kind of entertaining. I really wanted to hate it. I wanted this to be my bottom one. And I found that I didn't hate it, and I kind of enjoyed some of it. I agree with Davey. I don't think we needed it. Like, if this movie was never made, would we care? No. Maybe it'd be better if it wasn't made, because it's just so weird how it doesn't sit in with the rest of the films in a franchise that is still continuing, right? So what do you need this for? You know, you do a remake like this when they haven't done a film in 10 or 15 years and it's basically done, right? But that's not really the case. So I don't understand why they did this. There's some good kill scenes, though. I really like the scene where, I mean, Aubrey Plaza is great. She's great in this. She's a tremendous actress. I really love seeing her here. How much of an asshole was her boyfriend? And how much did you guys love when the boyfriend gets his head chopped up in the rototiller? That's like the best scene in the movie. And that I was like, yes, get rid of that guy. He's an asshole. So, but yeah, that's my number 7. And my number 6, I'm going to go with Cult of Chucky from 2017. I think this is the wackiest film in the whole series. I agree. You know, I think Dan talked about it. A total One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest vibe throughout the whole thing. And I thought that was kind of fun. But now all of a sudden he can take over like multiple bodies. It's like, what? Which I think is just absolutely batshit crazy. But I think it's a kind of a fun film. The kills are good. It'll be really interesting to see, because I haven't watched the series, if they take things from here and go, without you guys telling me, if they take things from here even further into the series, because now it's like all of a sudden, the end of this film, Chucky's in human bodies, right? So there's no little doll at the end of this. So it's like, I'm really interested to see where this goes, because what I'm going to start doing once we get past the Phantasm ranking, that is I'm going to dive into the Chucky series to see where it all goes from here. So yeah, that's my 8, 7, and 6.
You'll be impressed. Don't worry.
Okay, I'm hoping I will, because I've heard nothing but good things.
Cool. It is fun.
Cool.
Okay. So I'll go with, so next up, I'll go with Cult, and put it there. Yeah, it's cheap, really cheap. This feels even much cheaper than Curse. It's so bright to cover up the cheapness as well. It feels like you should be wearing sunglasses or something. It's just fucking hell, Jesus Christ. It looks like THX, the George Lucas movie. It's just white. Which would be nice if there was a lot of contrast in it and blood splatters and things, but it's really just to hide the cheapness of the whole affair. I didn't think the Cuckoo's Nest thing was a particularly clever reference, because it does say Cuckoo's Nest. It's like Cuckoo's Nest in here. It doesn't just say a bunch of cuckoos. So saying Cuckoo's Nest was, it's a bit too cute for my liking. Not particularly clever. Whereas I like it when it's more clever with it. I love the comedy, which is why some of the other ones haven't popped up yet. But yeah, I didn't jive with a lot of it. But it does set up a lot of stuff, and without saying too much from where Pete left it there, it's one big story ultimately, which it really doesn't feel like when you're sitting watching these films in the early days, but it really is one massive story, quite unbelievably at points. So it's really just another episode, of a slightly longer episode of what's happening with the Nika adventures at this point. Next up for me, that's where I'd put Seed of Chucky, so kind of right in the middle there. I love Glenda. That's my kind of reference and stuff, putting in bizarre Ed Wood references. They get Billy Boyd to do Glenn and Glenda. And the bizarre choices, I love the comedy in it, actually. I think the bizarre choices. So yeah, the Britney Spears one's a bit cheap, you know, that's like Paris Hilton in House of Wax or something. But I like Glenn thinking that he's Japanese for no reason other than it says made in Japan on his arm. I think that's great. And just randomly speaking Japanese at points, thinking that's where he's from. I thought that was brilliant, absolutely fantastic. It's very meta, again, just like the one before it. we get the Rebel Without a Cause, you're tearing me apart. We get all that kind of stuff. We get Chucky's eyes in the clouds, just like Gary Oldman's in Bram Stoker's Dracula, or I guess it would be Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, but you know what I mean. We get the references to Bound with Jennifer Tilly, and she's the star of the show for me there. It really, I mean, if John Waters wasn't in it, you could almost imagine that he directed it. It's got kind of scuzzy vibe of a John Waters film. And Jennifer Tilly's stuff, a film within a film where everybody knows it's Jennifer Tilly. I love that. I love that, where you have to follow it intricately throughout, and it carries right on, and she's still playing, even at the end of the film series, still playing both Jennifer Tilly and Tiffany. I love all that stuff, and it continues the Martha Stewart joke, where just in the background on the TV, Martha Stewart's being executed for her embezzlement, I guess it was, in the 2000s. So they picked that up even. It was really tight. Love all the stuff with Glenn and Glenda. I think that's really hilarious stuff, and really bizarrely progressive for 2004, which comes straight from Don Mancini, which fantastic. I can see why it would grate though. I can see why, if the jokes don't work, and this is much more comic, if jokes don't work for you in a comedy, then it's obviously relatively failed. But they worked for me. And then next for me would be, probably this is where I'd put number 2. So in at third, number 2. It's a bit disappointing. We introduce the businessman, and I kind of wish they'd followed that plot a bit more, that the corporation were up to something as well. That would have given us more of a Halloween 3 or RoboCop vibe. We could cast Dan Hurley to play the same part he plays in both those franchises. But I like the stuff in it with Great Kill with the factory worker. It's really weird casting, having Jenny Agutter in there as the stepmother, very bizarre. And then you've got Grace Zabriskie in there as the social worker. There's a cool kill there. And yeah, the father's Gary Graham, isn't it, from his Used Cars and Phantom of the Paradise, as Craig said. There's some cool stuff in there with the end set piece. I guess it would be the whole act in the factory. I like that. The lady from Shanghai, or Enter the Dragon, House of Mirrors, but it's House of Chucky's. I really like that aesthetic. That sets up some great stuff. I like Kyle. I think she's a cool addition. It stops Andy from being too annoying, because he's at that precocious age where you don't want to spend too much time with a really small kid. There's not too much you can do with a really small kid in this franchise, which is why they thought they had to age Andy up a bit in number 3. But Kyle lets you do more with her character. So yeah, I genuinely like all these pretty much, apart from the bottom one. But yeah, I think number two is pretty underrated overall. I actually think it's a genuinely decent little slasher movie.
Chris.
All right, my number 5, right in the middle. Yeah, I agree with Davey. Seed of Chucky. I think it's got a lot of comedy. I think some of it works for me, some of it doesn't work. But the Glenda thing was funny. The character of Glenn or Glenda was definitely, to me, it worked because he was creepy but annoying. But sometimes you almost kind of felt sympathetic as well. I liked it overall. It was entertaining, and I did have a couple chuckles out of it. My number 4 was the remake from 2019. But yeah, I agree with Craig. The kid that played Andy looked like he was too old. Aubrey Plaza was way too hot and just seemed too young to be the mom. The kid was really annoying. Like, I kind of liked when people were picking on him, because he was just annoying and little shit. There was a lot that was changed, like you had mentioned, Pete, and I know it was a completely different production team. And I don't remember all the ins and outs, but it was the whole thing with remake rights, which are different than sequel rights, which is different than TV rights. But man, I don't even know why they bothered to call it, why it was Andy and whatever, and whatever the mom's name was. this, why they use the same names. Because to me, I'm like, okay, you guys should have fucking thought about the fact that if you would have used different names, and maybe changed it even just a little further, maybe down the road somewhere, you could have done the Brad Dourif Chucky versus the Mark Hamill Chucky. Like, I don't know why they didn't, somebody wasn't thinking that. But I really, I love the ending in the warehouse where all the different, animated toys are running around. And one of the biggest laughs I ever had was in the end scene where the guy has the big Chucky head and a knife in him, and he pulls the knife out and he just explodes blood all over this little girl's face. I mean, I howled with laugh. It was definitely the best laugh of this entire series for me. So I liked it. I got a kick out of that. And my number 3, again, I had never seen this from start to finish until, watching it for this ranking, was Child's Play 2. I agree. It was very much underrated, and very much, to me, it's one of those sequels that really feels like a continuation of the original. In the same way how, to me, like Friday the 13th Part 2 feels like a sequel to Friday 1 or Halloween 2, other than Jamie Lee Curtis's terrible wig, really ties into Halloween 1. I thought this one definitely, back to back, worked well. I liked Jenny Agutter and Garrett Graham, but they just didn't have that much to do. I thought they were great replacements for Chris Sarandon and the mom, Catherine Hicks, from the first one, but they just didn't have enough to do. I didn't like how some of the kills were off screen, but I really liked Christine Elise as the foster sister. I liked that dynamic. Plus, she was cute, and I definitely agree with Davey. The last act in the warehouse, and when Chucky gets the knife, where he uses it like a knife fist in his hand, and the whole fight scene, I thought that really worked well. So yeah, that's my my number 3, which again, I thought that was really, really, it was almost my number 2, but not quite.
Cool. Dan?
Okay, number 5, I'm going to go with Bride of Chucky. Only because I kind of like the whole dark humor aspect of it. It does get a bit annoying. I agree with everybody on this part of it, but it just starts going out there, and it's going like to go from Child's Play. The first 3 are basically straight on murders or killer movies, and all of a sudden this goes here. It's like, what? There's this. Where's he going? He's making a sharp left turn here. And so that's why it's there. I mean, I kind of like the whole fact, the dynamic. He's getting a little goofy now, but I had to put it in some. Once again, I still kind of enjoyed it to some extent, all these films, but that's why it's there. The next one I have, I'm going to go with number 2. Number 2, because it is a linear continuation in some respects to number 1. The whole thing in the end, I agree with Chris. The whole thing in the factory. The only thing I can never understand about the factory, and I don't know if this was a faux pas, but if I'm not mistaken, when the dolls are going down the conveyor belt to get their eyes stuck in their head, which, mind you, the guy that gets the eyes stuck in his head is great, but I don't remember a thing going out to hold their head, because they're just kind of wobbling on the whole thing until you get to the close-ups of it. And number 2, how can you run a factory like that all night with nobody standing around there other than a security guard up in the 3rd floor?
The quality
the way
control
those dolls are going, they're going to be flying all over the place. Yeah. But I kind of enjoyed it. I think he threw in a lot of stuff that he had from number 1. He never got in there, or so forth and so on. And that's how number 2s come about. It's leftover material that got left on the cutting room floor or the script floor, and it's like, well, it's a good thing. Let's bring it in. But I like it. It's a decent horror film. My next one, number 3, I'm going to go with Seed. Let's put it this way. If the whole Chucky universe here, including the TV series, were an LSD trip, okay, this is where you're peaking, because it is just so out there. I mean, it's not even annoying. It's just like, is that Britney Spears? oh my God, not since they killed Steven Seagal in Executive Action. It's like, was that Steven Seagal? You know,
It
he's
wasn't
there.
Britney Spears though.
It wasn't, but it was supposed to be her. It
Yeah, it's
wasn't.
supposed to be, but
Oh, but still, the whole
was
just
joking.
the minute type of thing, the John Waters. I mean, if anybody can play a gossip columnist photographer, it's John Waters. Just the whole, the Glenda, I kind of like the whole thing, which they play off heavily in the TV series at one point. Which we're not going to say that because Peter hasn't seen the series, but I just like because it was just out there, and it just Redman. I mean, for God's sake, I thought Redman was just going to be like a 1-minute joke. Next, he's a major part of the film. And he's sitting at a dining room table, and he gets disemboweled.
He's a pervert as well.
Yeah, and I'm just, so I kind of like it because it's just out there, and that's what I said about the series. It just goes all one direction or the other. Then that's why I put the seed number 3. I did not see the reboot. And the reason why I didn't see the reboot is because I was kind of intrigued to watch the TV series. And to give Pete an update, once you start watching that TV series, you don't stop. It's a binger. It's a binger because it's all about homages. But that's why I didn't even watch the reboot or whatever you want to call it. And so I'm not even part of the equation with that one. But yeah, so there it goes. It's going to be Bride, number 2, and then finally Seed of Chucky.
Cool. All right, Jamie.
So that wasn't Britney Spears. I got to rewatch that.
I
thought that was her.
Look-alike, yeah.
Yeah, it was a look-alike.
All right, I got to rewatch it then because I thought it was her.
He would have been in the poster if they had her in 2004.
Yeah,
maybe. All right. I'm going with Child's Play 2 from 1990 at my number 5. And yes, you guys are right. First time I saw it, I was like, holy shit, they brought the same little kid back. They're really continuing the story. I did not expect that. And I get that twice in this franchise, by the way. I don't think it's a bad sequel. I think a lot of people probably went to the theater in 1990 and walked out saying, I expected that to be worse. They do a good job in this movie, and they continue it through the franchise of frustrating the audience, of us feeling frustrated because nobody believes the person who knows Chucky is real. It's just a doll. And you're like, no, it's not, God damn it. Even when they find out and they die, for that second before they die, you go, ha, see? Now die, fucker. So they do a good job of that in here. It's a good frustrating feeling that the audience gets, I think. A couple things I don't buy, as Craig said, killing the teacher, not only with a ruler, but a air pump too. Not buying that. There's like a scene, it's kind of forgivable, but I'm like, where they slam on the brakes and the Chucky doll goes through the thick windshield of the car, and the hole. I'm like, that's very cartoonish. The last 20 minutes at the toy factory is fun. It builds tension. And like Dan Brown said, the I love bits, and the eyeball bit, the toy eyeball bit is great. It made me laugh. That was probably my biggest laugh in the whole franchise. And then number 4, I'm going to be defending some movies here tonight, fellas. I'm going with Cult of Chucky at number 4. And the first thing I learned watching this is that Andy grew up to be a terrible actor. He's just god awful. He was better when he was 6. And this is another time when I was surprised because Fiona Dorf's character, I was like, oh, they're continuing this again. Cool, because I wanted more of it. They still do this deep in 2017. They're still doing a good job of that frustrating, it's just a doll thing where I'm sitting there going, no, it's not. In 2017, they're still doing this. I think the whole movie has a Brian De Palma feel to it, right down to the split screens at times where you see 2 things going on at once. Maybe that's just me. I think it's a very bold approach to making a Chucky movie. I think it gets crazier and crazier as it goes on. And right before it's about to unravel, I think it reels itself back in. I will say, I got to disagree. So Jennifer Tilly's in the series too, huh? I don't know if I'm the
Make it
biggest
fun.
fan of her in this franchise. I love Jennifer Tilly and a lot of things. Bound is one of my favorite movies of the 90s. You know, she's even fun in Liar Liar. But I think when she comes on screen in this movie or this franchise, I think she cheapens it a bit for me. And when they have her coming in this movie with the whole Jennifer Tilly Tiffany thing, it's like they're forcing that whole aspect. And it's like I kind of see it as, yeah, that might have been a mistake in the Seed of Chucky, but we're gonna just kind of force it on you and try to make it better. It's like when you say a really bad joke and you have to explain it, and when you explain it, you just make it worse. Or you're doing a sculpture and you're like, well, maybe if I just do that, and you do, oh, I made it worse. That's how I feel like every time she comes on screen. They're just making it worse, and they're trying to make it better, but they're not. Not for me, anyways. But you guys seem to love her, and it works for you. And then with my third one, I'm going with Curse. Here I come with the defending of Curse. And God, and watching these all in a row after an awful Seed of Chucky, this was a relief, because I didn't know, after Seed of Chucky, guys, I didn't know if I was going to make it. I didn't know I was going to make it. I'm like, I'm just going to text and say I'm bowing out. And then I started watching Curse. I'm like, this is really good. And I would say the rat poison scene builds up tension and suspense. And I think it's the most suspenseful scene in this whole franchise. I was on the edge of my seat. Who's going to eat the rat poison? Hope it ain't the little girl. Oh, is it the priest? It was really well done. I think the whole movie builds suspense really well, like the scene in the elevator. And this is another thing I like about it. You don't get any real Chucky 45 minutes, the first 45 minutes. So 45 minutes into the movie, you're not burned out on Chucky. You're yearning for Chucky. So when he does show up, you're like, yes. Yes, the whole surprise thing about Charles Lee Ray was, it should have been the father. If you're I don't think you need to do it at all, but if you're going to do it, come on, it's staring it in the face, literally, as Laszlo said, staring you in the face. Make it the father. But I do think that it's cool that they brought her in, the daughter, to, play a big part in this franchise. So yeah, that's my number 3. I like Curse of the Chucky. I think you guys know it was direct to video, and you went in thinking, direct to video, this is going to be cheap. And then your mind saw it as cheap. I didn't see it as that cheap. So.
All right, Craig.
All right, my number 5, I went with Bride of Chucky. And for me, to coin a Martin Popoff term, I definitely thought this was a try-harder movie. I don't know if they necessarily went to Vancouver to record it, but but it was definitely one where they, after seeing what happened with part 3, I think they made a concerted effort to put out a better product. And as you guys had already said about this, there's a couple parts in it where it mentions get into the 90s and fist pumping white zombie, at one part, and a couple times where it's like I tried to catch. I knew that the soundtrack had like a lot of metal songs in it, and it's like, and I remembered that Judas Priest's Bloodstained was in it with Ripper Owens singing, and so I was trying to, and it's like, there it is. When I could point it out when it happened in the movie. I thought the dolls looked a little bit better. And the whole thing with the main characters, mistaken identity serial killers. I mean, it was not too bad, but as I guess Jamie had said, it was cool to see John Ritter in it. I did not remember that he was in the movie either. And with the Pinhead reference and the which I thought was kind of funny. The doll sex scene was right out of Team America, which I thought was funny. I mean, I was laughing the whole time while that was going on. And the same as the "It's Alive" ending of the movie, which I thought was kind of funny as well. But I kind of have it, right in the middle with there. I mean, this one, I think I saw parts of it, but I never saw the movie in its entirety before a week or so ago. My number 4, I'm with Dan on this. I went with Seed of Chucky, definitely the wackiest of all the movies, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I did laugh at John Waters in that, especially when he's looking through binoculars and he says, "A masturbating midget," at one part. I mean, I really was cracking up at those parts. The Glenn and Glenda things, yeah, he is creepy looking, and just like Chris had said, you do feel bad about him, for his circumstances. I mean, and where he is being forced to be a ventriloquist dummy, and and all that, and the Made in Japan thing that Davey said, that I really did think that was, I really
Still
did
creeps
think that
me
was
out.
funny. Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Some bloody parts in it, and I thought it was clever. And then right at the end of the movie, I was like, "Hey, young Sherlock Holmes is right there, playing the lawyer, I believe."
Yeah, Nicholas Rowe.
At the end of the movie. So, but no, I thought it was fun. And Jennifer Tilly doesn't bother me. At first, she did, like the squeaky voice and everything when she being in Bride, but then I kind of got used to it. And I had already watched the television series, which is I watched the TV series without benefit of having seen Curse or Cult before, but I kind of just figured out, what was going on with everything. So, but anyhow, Seed was my number 4. I thought it was a lot of fun, and maybe the first controversial pick for us all. My number 3, I went with number 1 as my number 3. Enjoyable enough movie, and I remember watching this on video over at a friend's house. I mean, after it had already gone through its theatrical run, because at the time I remember seeing previews and it thought, oh, this looks kind of stupid. I don't really want to see this. But then once I did see it at a friend's house, I enjoyed it. I like Catherine Hicks as the mom. I thought she was, she played a nice role coming off of Star Trek 4, and Chris Sarandon, of course, from Fright Night, I thought was good. The guy who played Eddie Caputo, I don't know his real name, but he was on a Seinfeld episode as Brody, the guy who pirates theatrical movies. So as soon as I saw him, I made my Seinfeld connection there. Chris and I had mentioned this before about with young Alex Vincent in this movie, that what was at least refreshing. I mean, definitely, obviously, as an adult, he's not that great of an actor, but as a little kid, and I'm not saying that he was a hugely talented actor there, but he was a kid that acted like a kid. He did normal kid things. It wasn't like a lot of the movies of today where a 5-year-old kid is they have him like that he's in Mensa and can do all the things that adults can't do or anything like that. I mean, there's a part where the doctor, who's I recognize from the Incredible Hulk TV series, that he puts him. He's in the hospital, and he Andy says, like, "Oh, I want my mom," and he starts crying, and you can tell that is whatever the director did to make that kid cry. It was real, So I mean, and I'm not saying give the kid an Oscar or anything like that, but it was at least authentic enough to.
He was convincing. Yeah.
He was convincing as a little kid, and not kind of the way they do little kid movies now. And I always remember the funny elevator scene with Chucky, saying "fuck you," to the people, and that was always a big laugh whenever I saw that part with friends and everything. But I just liked my 1 and 2 movies, just a little bit better. So my number 3 is the first.
Cool. My number 5, I guess I like a little bit more than most of you, is Child's Play 3. And I agree, it's far-fetched. The whole military school thing is ridiculous. I also don't like the actor who plays Andy. But there's some campy fun here. I like the kind of nod to Christopher Lee's Dracula. Let's pour some blood down and bring Chucky back to life. I thought that was kind of cool. I think for me, one of Chucky's best death scenes is in this film, when he gets shredded to bits with a giant fan at the end. That gave me a big laugh. I thought that was pretty cool. Otherwise, it's a pretty mindless film. Not nearly as good as the first 2, but I think it's fun. Number 4, I'm going to go with Curse of Chucky. So I really like the more serious tone in this film. This movie it's almost like a serial killer film meets like a haunted house film. I like the fact it's in one location. It's a creepy house. Yeah, it kind of looks cheap. You can tell they didn't have a bigger budget, but I like the dark kind of haunted house nature of the whole film.
I'm glad you said that, because I forgot to say that. You got
and that's why I like those.
You got the thunder and lightning. You got it all.
Yeah, and you don't see him much in the first half of the film, but it's okay because it kind of like built up the suspense. And I thought the little twist at the end was interesting. I agree, would have been a little bit better if they did it the way we've already talked about it, with the origin there. But all done, some good kills. The actors are attractive. The female actresses are very nice to look at. I think I enjoy this one. It's fun. And number 3, I'm going to go with Bride of Chucky. So I remember seeing this in the theater when it first came out and enjoying it, even though it was much more humorous. You talk about Jennifer Tilly, right? Squeaky voice, epic cleavage. Yeah. Okay. So there we go there. She's great in this series. I think she's always been one of those actresses that she's quirky, and all the other films she's been in, I always like seeing her. I think this gives her something really cool to sink her teeth, and I think it's really good. You got a really young Katherine Heigl in here, right? Which I totally forgot that she was even in this film. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of laughs here, but I think overall it's a fun film. But yeah, that's my 5, 4, and 3. Back to debut. Top 2.
Top 2. So number 2 then, I'm going to have it higher than anybody, I think. Curse of Chucky for me. We had a question on our Q&A about favourite types of horror, and I said Gothics, and that to me is Gothic Chucky. It's as close as we get to that aesthetic. You get paraplegic woman like it's Taste of Fear with Susan Strasberg or something, and it goes back to the idea of the first one. As Chris said, a kind of soft reboot in a way. It's a reboot of the ideas, if not the actual franchise, because Chucky's silent for the first half of the film. So it picks up again with Chucky whispering to the kid, and we don't even get to hear those conversations. We just hear the kid's point of view, and Chucky says life's a bitch and stuff like that. So it goes back to that idea. I like doing that. It's a nice kind of putting the brakes on when things had ramped up so much with Seeds of Chucky. You couldn't go any further with that, so you have to do something different. I really like that they did that, and you've got again references. Don Mancini loves putting in references, so you've got the changeling in there with an eyeball going down instead of the red ball and things. I liked the flashbacks, although I would change the twist like everybody else said. I like the look at the flashbacks with the kind of Sin City aesthetic where you just see the sunflowers in yellow. I think that's still very well done. As much as I love Jennifer Tilly, I love her in everything. She's amazing in the show. Dan's already said she's in it, so we can say that at least. She's brilliant. This is the one where I think if I didn't go into this knowing the films, I'd just be thinking, why is Jennifer Tilly here? What's this got to do with anything? Same with the post-credit scene of Andy. If you didn't have the long-standing love with the franchise, you would just be wondering, who's this guy? Who's Andy Barclay? But it's fine because we are fans and we are watching these films. That's fine. But it's a one-off. It's almost like Mancini just bet everything that he could pay off all these stories that he would always get another film or a show or something to build it up again. Because if any of these had just stalled, the storytelling would have just died. It would have just left you on a bizarre, like, why is Jennifer Tilly at the end of that last film? It's odd. Yeah, so I'd certainly say that's my second favorite, which means that my favorite, therefore, is the very first one. I think it's a really great 80s slasher film in general, like just for the general trend of the time. It starts with that great throwing you straight into the action, looking like a quintessential 80s B thriller with Chris Sarandon chasing Brad Dourif, and it's great to have Brad Dourif actually on camera for a little bit, just at the very start, setting it up much more as a crime film, so we get to see Charles instead of Chucky for a little bit at least. I like casting such a young kid as the lead as well. And as mentioned, it was great that they found a kid who felt like a kid, because how often are these kind of films ruined by a really bratty kid who you just have no sympathy for whatsoever? They feel like the kind of kids you just know their parents have pushed them into acting, and they're really precocious. So it was great to have a very naturalistic young actor like Alex, and I like him as an adult. I think he's it's almost kind of funny to see him as the badass Snake Plissken type hunting down rogue Chuckies throughout the country in the later film. I think that's kind of fun because he's not that kind of actor at all. He's like this schlubby guy. He looks like he should be one of us. Never mind hunting Chuckies in the wilds. But yeah, I like him. I love the Chucky, and as we go on, as we mentioned, it becomes a much more comedic franchise. But the first time we hear him speak, he doesn't make a big quip. He doesn't say anything clever. He doesn't reference another film. He says, "You stupid bitch, you filthy slut." That is his first fucking words. "You filthy bitch, you stupid slut." Nothing smart about it. It's just pure aggression. It's the kind of thing you can believe that an actual street criminal like or serial killer like Charles would actually say. So I really like that. I like the ridiculousness of the whole premise. Just as a one-off movie, why would he have a voodoo mentor? You know, I like that. It's just a bizarre little idea. You know, with we've not mentioned it, but that mantra that he has to say every time he summons up the bring me the power, I beg of you, all that stuff. That's really fun. I like that stays in the whole franchise, and sort of the clouds, the ominous clouds that always look exactly the same every time. I love Andy going on the public transport himself. This tiny little kid walking around. Is it Chicago? I guess it looks like.
Yeah.
And he's wandering around public transport, and that's almost more terrifying than some of the stuff Chucky's doing. Is him wandering around Chicago and this desolate looking place. It's horrible, and he's gone into like this real slummy area, into abandoned houses and things. And, you know, and then the things that he's saying as well. You know, Chucky says Aunt Maggie was a real bitch. You know, that kind of thing. It's a more visceral Chucky. He's not smart Alec. He's not the modern Chucky, who's much more almost a parody, or he's a bit of an avatar for Don Mancini sometimes, standing up for all sorts of causes in real life, which is very different to what we establish here. So yeah, I really like this first one. I think this is probably the best, but it's not to put down any of the other installments. You know, you do get some little 80s isms of we have to put in some smart ass dialogue, so you get the friend till the end. You know, this is the end, friend. That's good. We can get a little action quip from Andy. It's and what's her name? Catherine Hicks as the mother. I think she's brilliant. She's got a real Dee Wallace quality about her. You know, who I think is the quintessential 80s mother in movies with Cujo and E.T. and things. But she's great. I love her in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, and I think she's great here too. She feels like a real mother, you know, having to work extra shifts. She doesn't feel like a movie star. She feels like just a working mother trying to make ends meet. I really believe that. And I like that too. It feels the apartment's small. You know, it's not a John Hughes house where you think anybody that lives here would have to be worth about 100 million. What the hell's going on? You know, the house from Home Alone or 16 Candles or Weird Science. It feels like real working class people and real grimy streets, and it's a gritty film, which is so odd up against Chucky, but it works perfectly and kickstarted a brilliant franchise. It's still going till literally this day. So yeah, number one, Chucky, Child's Play 1.
Cool. Chris?
My number two is Bride of Chucky. This was only one of the two Chucky films I saw in the theater, and I really enjoyed it. I agree and disagree with Jamie because yes, the color scheme, the color palette on this is totally off the wall, and there's tons of crazy angles. But Jamie compared it to Schumacher's Batman. To me, I compare it to George Romero's Creepshow. You know, to me, it's very comic booky, which is great. I love comic books. I love the soundtrack. I thought the kills were good. I thought the introduction of Jennifer Tilly was great. You know, I really think Child's Play 3, yeah, it's the Alex character, but he's old and he sucks. And it just, to me, he's like the real Alex is missed in Child's Play 3, but yet in the very next movie, there's no Alex. But I think the cast and the writing is so strong. I don't miss him at all. I don't think he's needed whatsoever. And just like you said, Pete, I completely forgot that the cute blonde was Katherine Heigl. But even them, the two, older teenagers were somewhat not annoying. Yeah, they were stupid and naive, but they, unlike most, slasher films, like I actually didn't want to see them, put to death.
Yeah.
Yes, overall, I thought it was pretty entertaining. I laughed a couple times when rewatching it. I think it still holds up pretty good. And I totally forgot that that Tiffany shits out the baby at the end of the movie. I'm like, wow, yeah, I totally forgot about that part. And number one is the only other one in this series that I saw. And yeah, I was there opening night in 1988 for Child's Play. I saw it in the Hawthorne multiplex. And yeah, I'll never forget. It went over unbelievably. And like Craig said, man, in a packed house when the old people are like, look at that ugly doll. And he was like, fuck you. I mean, the audience erupted. And I know I played Child's Play 1 at my Hudson Horror Show. And man, people just fucking loved it. It still works, after all these years and sequels and everything else and all the pop culture-ness and all the toys and everything else. It still works as an effective, slasher film, even though it's a stupid little doll that, like Jamie said, anybody could just throw out the window. But I think Catherine Hicks is great. I think Chris Sarandon is great. It's a shame they could never lure one or both of them back to the other sequels, because that, to me, that's what they're, those are the only two characters, right, that they never were able to bring back. I guess obviously both of them have been doing well enough that they didn't need to come back. But yeah, I think Child's Play still works. It could be the best of the mini monster movies. Or at least one of the best. And yeah, I think it still really, really holds up quite well.
Influenced the whole generation of little tiny terror films to come, right? Yeah.
For sure, because there was a lot of them in the 70s, but man, once Child's Play hit, then the imitators just rolled out.
Yep, for sure. All right, Dan, your top two.
I'm only going to have one because I didn't see.
That's right. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm going to have to go with the original one, although I said in the beginning of the show that I saw it in 88 and went, okay, so forth. As I watch it 30-something years later, I realize for what it is. And it's true. Like, there were other doll things that came up before, the Killer the Ventriloquist dolls with magic, or the Zuni doll in Trilogy of Terror, and so forth. And that's when I first saw it in 88. It's like, okay, he's running around like the Zuni doll and things like this. But there are a lot of moments it's funny, even though it's not trying to be funny. It's a straight horror film, like when he just blurts out to them. The babysitter, and she reminded me so much of Linda Hamilton's roommate in Terminator 2, kind of like zippy and this and that. And she finds herself, instead of getting impaled, she gets thrown out of a window. It does what it has to do. Like I said, how it grew from there is pretty wild. One thing I would like to make an observation, since I don't have a second one, is a couple things about not only the show, and the most important thing is how Mancini handles this whole franchise. And number one, I like the fact in the shows, even though he's not a good actor, I like that Andy comes back and he's a little unhinged. I mean, he is the PTSD poster child for childhood trauma. I mean, just some of the things he does, both in the TV series and in this. But the other thing I like about the Child's Play thing, as opposed to Halloween, where everybody went and watched Halloween movies for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden their attitude was like the Bobby Ewing in Dallas. It was a dream, the whole thing. Everything after Halloween 1 does not exist. And they come back with this god-awful trilogy, in this last 3 films, like the other stuff didn't exist. What I like about Mancini, and it continues into the TV show without giving too much away, is he owns up to the mythology. I mean, if it's good, bad, or indifferent, everything pulls from all different aspects of it, from all the films. They reference things. I think that's another reason why people like to see it, because they do reference not only the pop culture aspects in films, but they also reference his own films, and he makes fun of himself. But he uses as part of the mythology. So you don't feel like you've wasted the last 30 years watching movies and saying, oh, it didn't really count. So I respect that. Couple observations. I think the whole circus tent thing, talking about homages, I'm not sure. It's a stretch, but I think the circus thing in number 3, I think that might be a homage either to like something like Funhouse or going into Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I mean, without getting too heavy duty into it. Also, the fact with Chucky being in the home movies and the Curse of Chucky, it reminded me of Sinister, the film Sinister, with the killers in the background. But I think it's overall, it's a lot of fun. And I'll close something out with Jamie. If you like Bound, you're going to love the TV show.
Don't give it away.
Not giving it away. Just you love Bound. Okay.
That's a great hook. It's a great hook on its own, though, man.
I gotta watch this.
Did you know Bruce Willis was a ghost in The Sixth Sense?
And you know something. It's funny about it is like, another reason why Jen Bertilli, I mean, she bounces around like she's on a trampoline.
She doesn't have.
Okay, let me tell you something. I could never play poker with her because I can never look at my cards. But on top of that, I think that also plays off the teenage hormonal thing. It's like, come on, she does not. She's a great actress. Don't get me wrong. Whether it be Bound, whether it be was it the Woody Allen film, she was up for an Academy.
Bullets Over Broadway.
Right. Things like that. But she just goes literally over the top with this. And, it's just always a delight to see her, like the ever-fetching Ingrid Pitt. So,
yeah, she's doing like Judy Holliday or Marilyn Monroe.
Born Yesterday.
Yeah, she's very much Born Yesterday kind of vibe.
I like that Mancini just admits it and just has fun with it. And like I said, TV show, I love it.
Yeah, I gotta start watching it soon. All right, Jamie, your top 2.
I'm watching Loki. I'm watching Fall of the House of Usher. I'm watching Phantasm movies. I'm trying to watch Penguin games. I gotta quit my fucking job just to watch what I want to watch. My God.
And then try and listen to all the music you gotta listen to, right?
I gotta listen to music.
I need 3 assists.
I need 3 needs.
I have a chance to do it. So, there you go.
I need to be like Chucky in 3 things at once.
Yeah.
So if you guys are keeping mental track, I haven't talked about the remake yet. So I guess I'm gonna have to defend this thing. Now you got to remember, I didn't grow up watching all these movies as they came out. I'm not bonded to this movie franchise like some people are. When I did, I totally forgot there was a remake. You forget like Poltergeist was remade, and you just forget that these famous movies were remade. So I go, why did they do this? So I start watching it, and I didn't know my girlfriend was in it. I had no idea Aubrey Plaza was in it. So right away, I'm like, oh, even if it sucks, I'm going to be all right. But right away, I saw where they were going with it, with the disgruntled worker. Instead of being possessed, I always thought the whole being possessed thing was I rolled with it, but I thought it was silly. And going the Megan route, I'm like, I'm down with this. He's got the eye, like an iPhone, we're with the modern times. And I very quickly, I changed my mind. I said, I'm glad they're doing a reimagining of this. I think Mark Hamill. Now, if you told me they're remaking Chucky, and guess who does the voice? I think Mark Hamill would have been the first thing out of my mouth. It just makes sense. I like his soulless approach. With it makes it more creepy. I love that the kid wanted to name him Han Solo, wanted to call Luke Skywalker Han Solo. I love Chucky's motives for killing. He's watching the kids watch a slasher movie and they're laughing. He's like, oh, killing is good. The kid's like, oh, go away. Like, his mom's, Andy's mom's boyfriend. I wish you would just go away. Oh, I think I can take care of that. And I love the great death scene with his head getting, all torn apart. So I hear you're single, Aubrey. What's up? I loved her since Parks and Rec, man. I think it's well directed. I think it's slick. I think it has a nice pace. I think it does have a bit of a sense of humor, almost in a, even though I'm not a Goonies fan, almost in a Goonies kind of way. I'm not, the guy pays homage to a lot of movies too in this movie. I'm not sure if we need the ET finger every time he's controlling something, Chucky, but all right. I was reading online that he was paying homage to like Heat at certain points and other famous movies. But I did notice there was a scene where Andy opened a door. And I said, holy shit, that is right out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So I Googled it and he did it on purpose. So yeah, he's paying homage. The guy is a lover of movies and he's paying homage to all his favorite movies in a stupid Child's Play remake, which is kind of fascinating. But I think it's really well done. And I don't know if I'll ever watch any of these movies again, but I might watch this one again someday. And then number one has to be the first. I'll tell you what, I watched that before I rewatched the first one. I said, oh, this might be number one. No, the first one's number one. It's got to be number one. It sets the whole origin and the lore of Chucky. And people, they never brought this up in the franchise again. Good Guys was a TV show. And then they made the doll based on the TV show. That TV show is never brought up again in the franchise. Catherine Hicks, not only is she fabulous in her role, she grounds this movie and makes it believable. I believe her motives. I believe her actions. And when you believe that character, you kind of believe, you roll with the doll coming alive too. Everything around her becomes more believable. And as Davey said, it's amazing how they made a movie about a possessed doll that kills people into just as much a crime thriller as a fantasy slasher movie. You wouldn't expect that going in. It has enough of suspense to keep you engaged throughout. Chucky is downright scary in this before he got the Kruger treatment. The doll looks good for 1988, even though you can tell it's a small person in a costume. When he's going upstairs from afar, you can tell he's a little bigger than what the doll is. But you roll with it. It's 1988. And like I said in the beginning, when I finally sat down to watch this a few years ago, when it was over, I thought, I can't believe that movie was that good. I was shocked.
Yep.
So yeah.
Cool. Greg?
Going into this, I would have originally thought that the first one would be my favorite, but as if you're keeping score, I quite enjoyed the last two, the newer ones, Curse and Cult. So my number two, I went with Curse of Chucky. I liked the introduction of Nika, the new character, and whether the movie is cheap or only having the one location, I liked it. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I liked the as I believe Jamie had mentioned earlier with the rat poison scene. It's like, what's going on with that, and like you said, when Chucky isn't in it for a little bit, but I was engaged in the movie at least enough to that I really it's like you almost kind of forget about that, and it's kind of like, well, what, where is this going? And I enjoyed that. Chris, I am disappointed that you didn't mention the surprise girl kiss.
That actually was in my notes.
That
Yeah,
came from Curse.
that was good. That was
That
definitely
the the hot sister and the hot babysitter, that threw me off too. I did not see that coming.
Nobody brought up the doll nipples either. Which one is that in? Where's the nipple when the doll shows or Tiffany shows the doll nipples?
Yes.
That's in Bride, right?
Is it Bride?
Must be Bride, the sex scene in Bride, surely, yeah.
I don't know.
But I liked it, and it's just, I found it to be a fresh take on this again, like coming and watching these all in order also. And as I had said, having seen season one at the time of the TV show, and that I had not watched either of the two newer movies, and the Nika character is in the TV show, but I just found it enjoyable, and I liked I liked how everything moved along with it. I guess Davey had mentioned before that maybe his version didn't have the bonus scene at the end where Andy makes his return in a post-credit scene, but the version
No, it's the streaming version didn't have it.
The streaming one didn't.
But the film version does, but the streaming version for some reason. So Andy just pops up in the next one. You would have no idea where from or why.
Yeah, or why he turns up and everything. They do kind of flash back to that, but still, it doesn't really make sense. But it's cool to see him returning in the movie. And of course, at the time, I already saw him in the TV show. And so I knew what he looked like and everything, and having a mustache and beard, and of course being in his 30s or whatever. But so seeing him just for a little bit briefly at the end of Curse was pretty cool. But my number one, I went with Cult of Chucky. I liked the asylum part in it. I liked the introduction of the multiple Chuckies, which is something that goes right into the TV series. I'm not giving anything away by saying that. I mean, but it introduces that
you don't need to watch the show now, but you can just piece it together tonight.
There's more than one Chucky, that he can kind of branch himself off into other dolls, and I like that. Another part, kind of like from Curse, the part that I didn't see coming with the babysitter and the sister having an affair. In Cult, I didn't see the evil doctor really coming with that. That kind of took me by surprise, and I had to laugh out loud when Chucky says about the doctor. He says, "Well, I don't know whether to kill him or take notes," so that he admired the doctor's motives and everything. The part with the three Chuckies talking to each other, I thought was really funny. And again, seeing Nika can walk at the end of the movie, again, seeing that from the TV show, I didn't really realize, how that came about. But I like the twists and turns in this, and I just found it to be adorable. And Fiona Dourif, I just think's a total fox every time I see her.
Craig, I was gonna say I'm calling shenanigans on this.
It's it's like
I think your love for her has
screen.
totally blinded you.
I like seeing her on screen, so yeah, that kind of helped me with my ranking with that. But yeah, I like Cult was my favorite.
I'm with Pete. Every time I see her, I just see Brad Dourif, and therefore
100%.
cannot think of her as a sexual being, because I don't want to fuck Brad Dourif. I'm sorry, Brad. I'm sure you're a nice guy.
Well, she's in Chucky mode. She reminds me of, what's her name? The one that's in the Russian Doll.
Oh,
no, Brad Dourif, because that's the only person she reminds me of. She's got the same face. It's fucking freaky.
I know who you mean, but I can't think of her name.
Natasha Lyonne.
That's it.
And just think, you heard it here first. Cult of Chucky is adorable.
Yeah, I noticed that. I used the word fabulous, and I never used that word. So adorable, fabulous.
I think I actually misread my notes, but we'll go with that.
There you go.
I actually said abominable.
All right, my number two is the original Child's Play. I think it's great. Saw it in the theaters. Still holds up really well. Great cast. Very tense. Good amount of violence. Little bits of humor, but not too much. And I think Chucky is probably, maybe for the one and only time, really scary in this film. Maybe a little bit in the second film, but it holds up really well upon repeat viewings all these years later. And it's influential for a reason. So but it's not my favorite. And I found, in doing this whole exercise and rewatching all these, my favorite has become Child's Play 2. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I agree. I like a good sequel that kind of basically continues pretty closely after the events of the first film, which this does. I like that Chucky is pretty much running amok through this whole film. And I love Christine Elise as Kyle. I think she's a great character. I wish we saw more of her in the rest of the films. I'm assuming she's probably in the series. I'm assuming.
Dan, don't say it.
Okay, don't. I'm assuming. We don't have to confirm, but I'm assuming. I wanted to see. She shows up briefly in one of the other films, but I wanted to see more of her. I thought she was really, really great in this role. But for me, the reason why I love this film so much, I think the whole second act in the warehouse is the best extended scene in the entire franchise. I absolutely love it, and it's tense. It's exciting. It's action packed. It's horrific, and Chucky, like, in typical boogeyman fashion, right? You can never kill these guys, right? They just, no matter what you're doing, they keep coming back, they keep coming back, keep coming back. And I think that whole, when I watched this movie recently, I went and rewound and watched the whole thing all over again because it was so great. It was better than I remembered it way back when. So yeah, that is my number one, Child's Play 2.
Do you know what I love about the ending of 2 as well? It's a bit of a downer. Because those kids
it's okay like that. Yeah,
they've got nowhere to go, and he says, "Where's home, Kyle?" And she says, "I have no idea."
Yeah.
Like, and it just leaves them wandering away, like Don Johnson at the end of Man and the Dog, or whatever it was called. I mean, it's almost nihilistic.
I know. Well, you feel bad for this kid throughout the whole movie because it's like, here he had this great relationship with his mom, and she's off in a nut house somewhere, and he's like just being bounced around from family to family. Like, what did he do to deserve this, right?
Yeah. So she never comes back, as we've said, and it's kind of sad. Andy's story, it gets treated as a kind of fun story, but yeah, it's kind of dark when you think of it from his point of view, what he's actually going through.
Yeah.
Did they mention, I know they had said about his mom being in an asylum or something, but did they mention later on that she had died or anything like that, or no?
No, I think they intentionally want to leave the door open, know, because if you could get her and Chris Sarandon back, you would, wouldn't you? So
yeah,
the check is big enough to probably show up,
Yeah, we'll see. So there you have it, everybody. Ranking the Chucky franchise. Let us know how you would rank these films down in the comments below, and stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we will be doing this all over again for a franchise that's a little bit shorter, and that is the Phantasm film.
Boy.
So for all you fans of the Tall Man, stay tuned 2 weeks from today for that. And till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together. All the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. For Dan Brown, Jamie Laszlo, Craig Kaminski, Chris Allo, and Davey Gallagher, I am Pete Pardo and Chucky. See you all next time here on The Monsters Den. Take care.